course, the question, should Elian stay or should he go back to Cuba? As we speak, his Cuban grandmothers are on their way to the U.S. to fight for Elian's return to Cuba. Meanwhile, his Miami relatives are doing everything in their power to keep him here in the United States. Joining us now with more, immigration attorney and city councilman from Englewood, New Jersey, Michael Wilds, and in Washington, president of the Center for International Policy and former U.S. ambassador, I believe, to El Salvador. Isn't that right, Robert White?
It is correct, yes.
Thank you both very much for coming. Now, Robert White, let me ask you first, why is it that his grandmothers would be going to New York? First of all, it's cold here. It's going to shock them right to their skin. But beyond that, why not directly to Miami?
Well, Miami is a very special place these days. The Cuban Americans have made a political football out of this child and his arrival in the United States and the decisions to return him. And so I think that it's preferable to have the exchange, if that's the correct word, take place not in Miami but in outside.
But Michael Wilds, before an exchange can take place, we have to have all these legal issues resolved. I mean, we have the question of the federal lawsuit that Elian's relatives here in the States have put forth. We have all sorts of legal questions. They could be here for weeks.
Despite the legal football game that's going on and the political game, I am very pleased that the grandmothers finally have come here, or that members of the family have come here. To date, all of these legal battles are predicated on immigration, an executive arm of our government having gone to Cuba and interviewed a child without a representative of the child being there. Really, what we need is for everybody to get into a court of law and to cull out what is really in the best interest of this child.
Now, Robert White, are we likely to see at any point these grandmothers in a court of law arguing their case to bring the boy back to Cuba?
Well, I hope not, because I believe that the Doris Meisner, the head of the Immigration and Naturalization Service, correctly interpreted U.S. policy and U.S. law. I would also like to point out that the future of Cuba, and we all hope that that future will be democratic and free.
Well, Fidel is not going to live forever, let's hope.
Well, the point is that it's not the Cuban Americans in Miami or New Jersey or any place else that are going to determine the future of Cuba. It's going to be the Cubans in Cuba who are going to determine that future.
Well,
and the idea that all of these, that it's a good idea to bring Cubans here rather than let them work out their destinies in Cuba strikes me as bizarre.
But Michael Wilds, the thing is, we don't know. I mean, as knowledgeable as Robert White is and others, nobody really knows the future of Cuba. We do know pretty much the future of the United States, which was solidly democratic. What about the idea of granting Elian either citizenship or some kind of permanent resident status, so if he goes back, he knows that sometime in the future, if he wants, he can go back to the States?
Well, with all the politics aside, it's pure and simple. This family is very lucky that the United States is offering the child back, is giving them a forum to express themselves here, going to the great lengths of creating a private bill in Congress to give green card or citizenship is extraordinary. They've done that for Rupert Murdoch. They've done that for Winston Churchill. Unfortunately, politics is playing tremendously, and the question is, ultimately, was immigration's decision sustainable? Typically, they've deferred to courts to decide matters of status, marriage, divorce, and custody. Right now, we have a real legal issue at question. Yes, immigration has the authority to say who speaks for who, but they don't have the authority ultimately to decide what's in the best interest of the child.
Robert White, what do you think about that, granting the child either citizenship or permanent resident status and then sending him back?
Well, if you want to grant him, if the Congress wishes to grant him permanent residence, that, I think, is a gesture that's not necessary, but I wouldn't oppose it. But to grant a 6-year-old boy citizenship when he's neither capable of, not capable of making a decision about whether he wants it or not, I think is to debase the whole foundation of citizenship law.
All right, Robert White, Michael Wilds, thank you very much. A lot more of this to come. Weeks, probably. Thank you for coming. Well, the presidential race heads into the final weekend in Iowa. We're going to take a look at the candidates' last-minute meetings and greetings. Also, Republican presidential hopeful Senator John McCain speaking out about the New York ballot. He says it's fixed. We'll let you decide.
This program is brought to you by Fuji